Tommy Allen from TommyAllenMusic.com, and we've got a treat for you this week. We've got Ian Siegal, man nominated for many blues awards from MOJO magazine to the UK Blues Federation, Best Male Artist, Best Blues Album of the Year, so come and check it out. Thank you, man.
You're welcome.
We start back at the beginning. I found out you was born just outside Portsmouth.
Yeah, Fareham. Well, actually, Farnborough, I was born. I grew up in Fareham.
Okay.
Yeah,
because I was from Basingstoke, so I always thought you was a London boy, you see.
I mean, most of my life in London, I suppose, but no, Hampshire.
So going back, when did you get into music? Was it your parents, or how old was you?
Well, I had a cousin, Jim Berry, who still plays actually down in Plymouth Way. But he used to do the Portsmouth pub circuit, which was, it sounds crazy now, but it was a thriving thing back then. It was, he was gigging 5-6 nights a week in different pubs around Hampshire, and I used to go out and watch him and follow him, But I was very young listening to music. It was always on in my house. It was always vinyl playing or cassettes, constantly. And I speak to other people sort of my age, and they didn't constantly have music on. And I just thought it was normal, but we seem to always be playing stuff.
So your mum and dad musical at all?
They don't play anything. My dad sings now in a choir, but no, they just love music, big music fans. I just took it for granted that everyone's parents were huge music lovers. I don't think everyone's are.
So when did you start playing the guitar and writing songs?
I was 18 when I started. I started pretty late. I wish I'd started earlier. And I didn't really start writing until, maybe 5 years later. But, we all mess around, don't we? I wouldn't say I'd written a decent song until I was early 20s.
Right, okay. And was that during when I read you was at art college? Around that sort of time, or?
Yeah, after that, really. I moved to Nottingham and started hanging around with the wrong crowd or the right crowd. So, yeah, I dropped out of art college because music started to take over. Very common story. Yeah, art college didn't do it for me.
And was that at Nottingham you went to college?
No, that was Portsmouth. And then I moved up to Nottingham just to be an itinerant layabout.
Okay. Was the running horse back then?
That was it. First place I went. Jam session, Monday night jam at the Runner.
Was that Barry still owning it?
This was before Barry, actually. It's a lady called Jackie Woodward ran before Barry took over. But there was a thriving scene there then, and there were so many musicians. So many players, and so many gigs everywhere. There'd be 5 gigs going on in one part of Nottingham on one night. There'd be 5 different bands playing up and down the street, up and down Derby Road. Looking back, it was golden era,
So what was the journey then from Nottingham down to London? Was that a woman?
No, not at all. It was a case of realising if I didn't leave Nottingham, I'd get stuck there like a lot of my older friends had. They'd never. London's scary when you're not from there, And someone told me that if you don't go soon, you'll be a big fish in a small pond, is what he said. He said, which is very, very comfortable, but it's not challenging. So, and I went to London and got a real lesson because I went, to the Weavers Jam and
Stoke Newington and.
Yeah, well, by pure coincidence, I moved in with some friends in Stoke Newington, and the Weavers was the local. And I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't. But the first night I went down there, Lee Sankey, Eugene Hideaway Bridges, and Magic Slim was there.
Okay.
And Old Green.
What about Todd Sharpville and all that lot were around that time, weren't they?
Yes, that's true. Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, I know.
But it was like a baptism of fire, and I thought every night was like that down there. It was some sort of London Blues Festival going on. So they got Slim down and Eugene. But the standard, no disrespect to my Nottingham compatriots, but the standard in London was incredibly young. You got Ain't Nothing But James Hunter would be playing. Big Joe Lewis, Little George Suref, and people like that. And it was terrifying. I had to raise my game, and it was exactly what my friend said in Nottingham. You got to go. Because my game would not have got raised to that extent if I hadn't. It was put the fear of God into me. It was great.
Yeah, the Station Tavern was another one I used to go to. I travelled up.
I was a little late coming to the station because it was the other side of London for me. But I go there. I found that very intimidating too, because it was very cliquey, the station. I ended up, being part of the sort of crew down there, and then that was only shortly before it all stopped. Then they closed down or something. Something happened.
Yeah. And then there was the 12 Bar Club, and there was another one in Camden I used to go to. I can't remember the name of that one. A jam night back then.
I don't remember the Camden one. Yeah,
and
12 Bar. Right.
And then the South Wimbledon one is another one I used to go to, because I drove, so I used to drive from Basingstoke and go to all of them really. And Bull and Bush, that was the other one in Kingston. Richmond.
Yeah.
It was a great time back in the late 90s.
It really was, and there was a lot of people that started out then that have gone on to much bigger and better things, and I can remember them in their early days. Like that.
And that led to your, correct me if I'm wrong, your first album in 2004, Standing in the Morning?
It was a bit before. 2004, I think, was Meat and Potatoes.
All right, where I got that from then. I got 2005 for Meat and Potatoes, and then 2006, the bigger plate of Meat and Potatoes.
That's probably right then. I think it was 2001 or 2 when I did Standing, which was, my first proper recording, really. Yeah, I never felt I was ready until then. It took me a while.
Is that a band album or solo?
That was band, yeah. Yeah, that was band. But I think Meat and Potatoes was my first really proper one with a label and, signed into New Gene. It was a very small label, but it was a bit more sort of grown up. You know?
That was the guy that had Matt, wasn't it?
That's right. Well, that's how I met, Richard Pavitt.
Yeah, I met Richard as well, because he had that blues club, didn't he?
It was at Strawford.
Right. That was it, yeah. So you got in with that gang, and he'd done your first album.
That's it. And then got into the Netherlands, got onto the Dutch scene, and it all took off from there, really. The Dutch blues circuit, all, roots music circuit, really, that all went haywire for me. It was just a good timing as well, It was I can't imagine what it would be like to be in my position then, but now, you know what I mean? I think it'd be a hell of a lot harder. I know it's a lot harder for people. And it wasn't exactly the heyday then. That was already past, maybe 10 years before, but I think now it must be a fucking nightmare for people starting out, really. They have my sympathy, because gigs are drying up. There used to be clubs they'd put on a blues night once a week. Now it's once a month at most.
And we didn't have internet back then as much.
True.
So we didn't have the big social media like they're doing now. It was, getting out in front of people as much as possible.
Which I think, I don't want to change the subject too, but it's sort of connected. But I think that informs a lot of the younger players now, is that they don't tend to. I sound like a really old man now, but they don't tend to do the circuit. They don't tend to do the clubs. They're almost stars, It's far too soon, with very little grounding. And frankly, I can tell in their playing, especially in their writing. I know it's such a hoary old cliche, isn't it? But it is true. And and they'll do one fairly reasonably good album, and then they got nothing left. They've got all their songs are gone, and they're like 23, and they've hardly played at all. It's crazy. I mean, good luck to them. Yeah.
Then I've got you. Then there's a whole run of albums. Then we've got Swagger, Broadsides, Skinny, Candy Store Kid. Them two, 2011, 2012, was when you ventured out to North Mississippi and done a couple of albums out there.
With the All Stars, with Cody Dickinson, who I've been a fan of for years. So it was really incredible to.
How did that happen?
Actually, it was Richard Pavitt ran into Cody at some festival in the US. I can't remember which, and it just came up in conversation that what a big fan I was of not just the All Stars, but that kind of music, the sort of hill country. And then we just cooked up. I had met them once as well at a festival in Holland years before, but yeah, we just kind of started communicating, me and Cody, and started discussing ideas. And I flew out there and met them, and next thing we're in the studio making this record with a bunch of local guys, and we made 3 albums in the end. And then we had a band together. We had the Mississippi Mudbloods and had Alvin Youngblood Hart on bass, and it was pretty fucking awesome actually. And we still talk about doing it again. I'm sure. I think we will at some point. You know, Luther and I have just been working together on a little fun project. I don't know if it'll ever be seen or heard, but we recorded some stuff over here, which was pretty cool. So I'm still in touch with those guys.
Well, it must have been amazing to have that opportunity to, you know.
It was ridiculous for me.
Be in Mississippi recording and.
Yeah, it was everything you'd expect it to be, and a lot more. You know, it was a little scary, but everyone was so welcoming, and they said I fit right in. And that is my. If I've got a preference for a particular side of the blues, it's that kind of weird, hypnotic North Mississippi stuff. You know, I really have I feel a connection with that stuff.
And a white Englishman went down all right in North Mississippi.
It seemed to. I mean, I'm and there's, you know, I don't know if I certainly wasn't the first to do it, but I've seen, you know, a few other people did something similar after that. Not white Englishmen, but I mean, Samantha Fish went and did almost a kind of a very similar approach. It was a different result, and she had a lot more success with it. But she went to the same studio and worked with the same guys, and I loved seeing that. That was great because she was doing something completely different before me. But they're very inspiring, those boys over there.
So after them 2 albums, Skinny and Candy Store Kid, it led to Man and Guitar 2014, recording at London Blues Festival by the BBC.
Yeah, the Albert Hall.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
Well, luckily the BBC got a really good recording. We weren't planning to release a record of it. They just said they had a good copy down. I think if I'd known we'd been recording, I might have tightened up and not played as well. But yeah, that was great. And being at the Albert Hall was great. I mean, it was one of the smaller rooms at the Albert Hall, but you don't need to say that.
No, not at all.
Albert Hall was the Albert Hall.
Yeah, definitely. Did you have trouble parking around there?
Yes. I had played the big room at the Albert Hall before when I was opening for Bill Wyman. And I'm actually glad. That was one of the most terrifying stages I've ever walked out on, and I was alone. And it's massive, and it's like a theatre stage, so it slopes towards the audience, and like every footstep sounds like, you know, 1,000 decibels. So I was much happier in the smaller room, I can tell you.
Can you tell me, because after that I've got written in the Broadway and Satin, the Billie Holiday songs you did with the 12-piece orchestra.
Yeah, that was a bit weird.
So what did you do in that? Did you sing and play, or?
I was just singing. It was the National Jazz Orchestra of France. I happened to know one of their directors through French blues players. And they needed a male singer as like a counterpoint to their female singer. And they wanted someone with a rough voice. So he thought of me, but it was like avant-garde modern jazz, arrangements of Billie Holiday songs, whilst I sang them pretty straight. It was very odd. It was a great education because it was very disciplined. And everything was arranged, you know, so you couldn't mess about and improvise too much. Only when the soloists took their solos, and you know, French jazz is pretty out there. Sometimes I wouldn't have a clue. To me, I'd be going, "Well, you're playing out of tune. You know, you're not in tune anymore." But you know, they were doing all this experimental stuff, and it was great. And we went to South America and Reunion Island, and lots of gigs in France. It was pretty cool. I liked it.
How long did you do that for?
It was over the course of 3 years. I mean, we didn't do that many gigs, but it was a 3, and they change the orchestra every 3 years, and they get a new director and they get new lineup. And yeah, I was the oldest. They were all kids, you know, but they were all musical geniuses. I mean, they're all at like all these the top sort of jazz schools in France. It's pretty serious shit, you know, classic.
Put you in front of a whole new audience again, though.
Totally. I'm, you know, wearing tuxedos and, you know, it was that whole. It was kind of. I really enjoyed it, man. But it was a discipline. I had to, you know, sing the notes. You know, no messing about, and stick to melodies and things like that. You know, it was a good education for me.
Well, that'll come to your awards then. So you won Best Band, Best Male Vocalist, Best Solo Artist, Best Album and Best Songs at the British Blues Awards. How was that? Was that a good experience? Well, obviously it was a good experience, but...
Well, yeah. I mean, it's great, especially when it's a public vote. Well, you know, also when it's voted by the committee or whatever. I mean, it's weird, isn't it, all that award stuff. I mean, I don't know. I mean, one year I was James Hunter was up for Best Male Vocalist, and James is by far the best vocalist the UK has produced in a couple of decades at least. So I felt a bit ridiculous, and I was encouraging people to vote for James. But you know, I think I had more Facebook friends than his, so I won. You know, so and so yeah, but. Ultimately, yes, it's a great honour and all that, and it looks good on a poster.
Yeah. Let's go ahead. So the new one I can find is 2019, Naked Rage, stripped back and solo.
Yeah, because I did one called All the Rage with my band, with another Mississippi connection, my friend Jimbo Mathis, who I knew through all that stuff before. And that was a band album. And then I did this little, it's only an EP of Naked Rage. It was like acoustic versions of the band album. You know? Yeah, it was part of it. It was all connected to a tour, really. But that went well. That's the last thing I did. Yeah, it's true.
So that's all finished and ready to buy.
I think we sold them all. I think that it was all connected to 2 tours and just an EP, not vinyl, but an EP CD. So yeah, that's the last thing I've recorded. Well, under my own name, that's the last thing I've recorded.
So what's next then for you?
Well, I've just been involved in writing an album that's coming out next week. Obviously done under lockdown. Stuff I've been putting on Facebook called what's it called? 2020 Music Collective, and it's myself and John Amor, Joel Fisk, Giles King, Bob Fritzimer, Johnny Henderson, Dave Doherty, Rob Barry, and we're all from different bands, obviously. And it was Dave Doherty's idea. He plays in a fantastic band called Little Geneva, who are fucking amazing. And he just said, you know, why don't we start writing? We'll make it like a co-op. And we started bashing ideas back and forward, obviously via email and phone and stuff. And we got 10 songs together, and they're being mixed right now. And it came out great, really, really surprising and pleased. All sort of bluesy-ish, but, you know, pretty eclectic, pretty varied.
How did that work then, all being separate?
It was just, it worked great. Everyone would put their part down, and then someone would, you know, it would get shared on WeTransfer and Dropbox and all that stuff. It was all new to me. You know, sit at home, put your part down. I was singing my vocals into my iPhone, and they came out great. I mean, they really did. I mean, it's amazing, the technology these days. So we'll see how that goes, and we're going to try and do, I don't know, one a month might be a bit ambitious because it was a lot of work, but we're going to continue whilst lockdown is on and try and put out material for people. You know. But it came out surprisingly well, I've got to say. I'm very proud of it. And writing with John Amor is really a lot of fun. That raises your game because he's such an incredible lyricist. I had to really come up with some stuff to keep up with him. You know.
So what have you got planned, like, because this lockdown come unknowingly sort of thing, did you have anything planned outside?
What did I have anything planned outside of lockdown?
Like, do you have anything come for a bigger album coming out or with the band?
Do you know, I didn't. I was planning to quit touring at the end of this year and move to the Caribbean.
That sounds like a hardship.
Yeah, not to stop working. It was just at least to slow down on touring. But I think the touring is going to have to continue a bit longer to make up for losses this year. I mean, everything's cancelled, and like the first 2 months of the lockdown, that was most of my year's gigs, April and May. That was almost my entire year of gigging, apart from November. All at once, just gone. So it's like we're all coping with this new information and situation. So, I know it's we're learning weekly what's happening, aren't we? We could be cancelled right up into next year. So it's pretty scary stuff. But so it's changed my plans somewhat. But just got to sit and wait and see what happens.
So you're going to be on the phone then? Hey guys, we're back on the road, January 2021.
Well, I've already rescheduled some of this year's gigs into next April and May. So, well, we shall see. But a valuable thing I've learned is doing these online. I know everyone's stuck at home, so you've got an audience. But doing these online shows works quite well. So I might just carry on doing those. But wherever I move to, I might just carry on doing them and recording. And, this lockdown has helped me learn how to use home recording equipment way more than I had before, beyond the iPhone. And I'm still learning a lot. But it's just given me the idea that I could slow down touring, but carry on making music. Just be in one place, but ultimately open my own little venue. That's what I want to do. Have a little music bar over there.
In the Caribbean?
Yes. Sounds awful, doesn't it?
No, sounds perfect. As long as you've got Wi-Fi, obviously.
That's all we need is Wi-Fi. Yeah. But yeah, maybe do these little Facebook Live shows every now and again.
Yeah. I think that's going to be a lot bigger thing now. Now it seems to work so well for everybody.
We didn't know, did we? And we were forced into the situation, and it turns out it works pretty well.
Do you use the PayPal for methods of being tipped?
Yeah.
And has that worked okay for you? Because I've not done it, you see.
I recommend it. It's keeping me afloat. You'd be surprised. I mean, some people are very generous. Some people, they can't afford to be, and that's fine. At least they're, at least you're keeping it out there and keeping people interested. Maybe getting some new fans. But it works really well. So you should give it a crack.
Yeah. Well, I've gone this angle. I thought I'd use the time to interview friends and musicians and try and put something out there like this, because everyone seems to be playing at the moment. And I thought, well, this interests me. It's nice to catch up with people and see how other people are doing it. And
that's right. And well, and it's your own thing too. So that does worry me that the market's a bit saturated now with people doing these Facebook Live shows. It's like everyone.
I know. I saw some bloke in the back of his caravan in America, and he had about, I don't know, a few people watching. It was like 2 a.m. I was like, man, everyone. Yeah,
it's getting a bit much, maybe. But I mean, I think that will level itself out, and people that have the material and the interest to carry on longer, that will happen, and sort of the more kind of amateurish stuff will sort of fade away. So we'll see. But it's keeping me afloat, that's for sure.
And how many of them are you doing a week or so?
I'm doing them once a week, every Sunday.
Right. Oh, okay. On Facebook or?
Yeah. Just for as long as I keep interested and other people keep interested, I'll keep doing it.
And how long do you perform for? A normal gig? 2:45s or?
No, well, I think I was going to, but a lot of people advised me that it was too long because of the weirdness of the situation. So I'm doing like an hour 15, so like one long set basically, But it flies by, and it's actually, the more I do it, the more comfortable it gets, and it's becoming actually more like a gig now. It was really weird, and you feel kind of disconnected, and there's no atmosphere. But once you get your head around it, and that you know that people are listening and they are hanging on your every word, so you have to watch what you say. You know, don't scratch your ass and cough for him. Yeah, it works pretty well.
And you're just using your recording on your phone. You're not any other microphones plugged in, or
other people I've seen them with really pro setups. I started with my laptop, which was a big mistake because the quality was terrible. Then I just switched to iPhone. I thought it would be the other way around. iPhones are really, really good. The quality, the camera, the microphone, excellent. And now I've started I've got a vocal mic and I'm putting my guitar very low through an amp, as well as being acoustic, just to add a little bit more presence to it, But I'm not really in the mic usually. I'm kind of backing off. It's just to add a little bit more, put a bit of reverb in there and stuff. But it's all very lo-fi, and it works fine. Most of what people are hearing is the acoustic sound. That I think sometimes they think they're hearing something else because they could see an amp and a mic, and it's a psychological thing. But they're actually hearing mostly what's acoustic in the room. And it sounds great. iPhones are fantastic. I sound like I'm advertising for Apple. But iPhones, I'm really knocked out about the quality of the sound on.
So your voice is just going through the amp as well?
I've got so little equipment at home. I've got one of those old 50s silver radio mics that was an ornament. I didn't even know if it worked. I just stick it through a guitar amp. That's, I'm just using what I got. So if I had more advanced equipment, I'd probably use it, but I don't. So.
Okay. So do you have any other hobbies other than your music?
Well, that's a very good question. It's hard to remember. It's been stuck at home so long. Cooking mostly, and I'm doing a lot of that. But I always did do it. And fishing. I discovered, being from near Portsmouth, I used to go sea fishing all the time. But I didn't know until recently that the canals in Amsterdam are packed. Someone took me pike fishing, and I caught like a 15 pound pike in a canal. I thought, Jesus Christ. So I'm going next Tuesday, getting out. There's some nice lakes here, so we're going for carp and perch, and I love fish.
What about books? Any books you recommend or you're reading at the moment?
I've got to get back in the habit. I'm slacking, and I need to. It helps with songwriting. So yes, nothing springs to mind. What was I reading the other day? I was reading some old Mark Twain stuff. I tend to read rock and roll biographies though. The last one I was reading was Elvis Costello's, which is excellent. But yeah.
Do you read poetry at all or anything?
I don't, as a rule. No, not that I'm against it. But no, is there something you'd recommend then?
Well, only stuff. There's some Charles Bukowski that I read. Well,
yeah, I think I've read all of it.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah, I love Bukowski.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to like. Yeah.
And I watched that documentary on his life that I think it's on Netflix, but that was pretty cool.
Oh, I've not seen that. What's it called? Do you remember?
I'd have to message it to you, but
please.
Yeah, I will do. But it's like some of it's home footage and stuff because he was like pissed off at the time and he's quite wild. And
yeah, he was a man.
And there's footages of him just on stage with a table and a fridge, and he'd get up and just get a bottle of wine out the fridge and sit there and drink it while he's reading his poetry to a room full of people. Getting more.
He'd be burping and shouting at people.
Yeah, basically. I think the one line he goes, it starts with, "I've got your money, you've got my soul." That's how he starts, something like that. Or you've got my soul, I've got your money, or.
He was cantankerous old swine, really.
But he's quite creative in the words.
Oh, amazing!
Yeah,
it was beautiful. I'm sure he was a nightmare to live with. But
what about TV? Do you get to watch any of that stuff?
Far too much lately. Right. Yeah, we just binge watched all 3 seasons of Ozark, which was excellent.
We've been told to watch that. Is it good?
Fantastic. Yeah.
We're on Homeland at the minute.
Yeah, what are we doing? It's quite old now, actually. Fargo. We just did some Fargo.
That's from the movie, is it? Is that the series? That's
TV series. Yeah.
right. Okay.
She's excellent. Yeah, way too much TV, which wasn't really a big thing in my life, particularly, except when traveling, but not at home so much. But I think Netflix is doing pretty well for themselves.
Yeah, well, we've linked up. We've got Amazon here as well, so they've been doing some of their movie premieres because the cinemas are shut.
That's right. I was all geared up. I always get excited when there's a new Bond coming out, and I was really looking forward to that. Because you got to see Bond at the cinema, right? But that's been postponed till November. I was gutted.
Oh man! So who would you say your top 3 influences are?
Jesus. Wow, that's hard. Tom Waits has got to be in there. Not less so these days, but when I started out, certainly Waits. And then, well, I'd have to say Muddy and Wolf, I guess. Ultimately,
there's no country artists in there that you'd throw in, or?
I mean, I play as much country as I do blues, so I'm just thinking about people who had the biggest impact when I was younger. So, Little Richard, but I love like songwriters like Townes Van Zandt.
What about Billy Joe Schaefer?
Yeah, I've seen him a couple of times. Great songwriter. Yeah, I love the country songwriters. Chris Christopherson's a particular favourite.
That one was one of my childhood songs. My dad always used to play because my dad was in the country. That "Take the Ribbon from Your Hair." That one.
I was singing yesterday.
Yeah.
Help me make it through the night.
That's it. Help me make it through the night. That version, and then Willie Nelson, he used to have on the road again all the time, and Boxcar Willie was another one that he used to be playing all the time. Yeah,
excellent. I'm doing my Facebook Live show on this Sunday. Is going to be all country songs. So I've got to brush up on my Willie Nelson.
You have to do Teddy Bear then from Boxcar. The truckers that come and see this crippled kid.
That's right. God, I remember that. I think I'll leave that one alone. I remember hating that when I was a kid. Well, I hated country music when I was very young. I didn't get into it until my 20s, really. Probably through Tom Waits and Elvis Costello doing country sort of influence songs. And then I think experience helps you appreciate country music more, the lyrics and stuff. Yeah. But I'm crazy about it now. I love Willie Nelson. And so many of them.
So who do you have in your CD player today? Who's playing?
I didn't have anyone. You know what? It's terrible with it. I don't listen to much music at home. I listen to more comedy than I do music. Podcasts. Yeah. So I don't know. I have Spotify on like, random Discover Weekly and stuff.
What podcast you listen to then?
Oh, Frank Skinner and Richard Herring and Adam Buxton.
Okay.
And, yeah.
Do you like the old comedy at all, like Round the Horn and? Oh
yeah, absolutely. In fact, that's weird you mentioned that. I was listening to Kenneth Williams yesterday. So that's odd that you mentioned that. Yeah, Round the Horn.
I have that when I'm driving sometimes back from a gig because I don't want to hear music, so I put on the.
I think that's how it started with me. Is that I just wanted to switch off from music, and then now I listen to more of that than anything else. But yeah, and Spotify is it's a blessing and a curse. But when they do this Discover Weekly thing where they select new songs you may not have heard, but based on your taste, and I discover a lot of new stuff like that. So that's pretty cool.
What would be your desert island disc?
It's a good question. Probably Sam Cooke live at the Harlem Club. Bingo. Yes. Yeah. That's my favourite album of all time. So
really? Okay.
Never get bored of that one. Yeah.
And was it Bobby Womack?
Yeah, I love Bobby Womack.
The early stuff. If you could, what would you change about the music industry today?
Jesus. I don't consider myself part of the music industry today.
Well, you're in favour for the way it's going on the internet and the sort of, digital sales and all that stuff. Are you?
No, not really, because it's taking money away from the artists. And we all know how little we make from basically nothing from Spotify, YouTube, etc., etc. So I think, not only are the gigs dying out, but CD sales are going to be zero before too long. It's all streaming and free downloads, and it's like people feel they're entitled to artists' music for nothing. So I would change that. I would put more money and power to the creators of the music rather than the people that are channeling it out there. And yeah.
What's your feelings about being videoed at live gigs and stuck up on social media and YouTube?
I'm not a fan of that, and I'm quite vocal about it. I mean, I've become less so these days because I just sort of gave up, because you can't stop people. It does piss me off, especially if they don't ask. If they ask first, normally I'll say yes, or I'll say you can video all you want, but keep it for yourself. You don't have to share, because it might not be your best performance. It's like I like to have control over what people see and hear. Or you might be trying out new material that you haven't released yet. You don't want someone having control over what you're playing and what people are hearing outside of the gig. Well, I got into an argument with a guy once on Facebook who said, he said, "Oh, I've made lots of recordings at your gigs," and he said, "But as far as I'm concerned, if I've paid for a ticket, I can record and take home anything I want." And I said, "You're quite correct. You can. They're called CDs, and you can buy one. Your ticket gets you into the gig, and that's it, right? It doesn't mean you're entitled to record everything and take it home." But he honestly thought it did. And yeah, I set him straight. I don't think he listened to me.
Well, we can't go to the cinema and film a film we're watching.
Well, it's and I often compare gigs to cinema, because it's the thing about, because they call it the Dutch disease, but the Dutch are pretty bad for talking during gigs. They're renowned for that, and they'll admit it themselves. But I always say, you don't go to a movie, do you, and sit and chat to your mate about the film, while everyone else is trying to listen. But it seems to be at gigs, some people think that they can just sit there or stand there and rabbit away. It's weird. For the most part, people are very respectful, and if you tell them not to film, they won't. But there's always a few pain.
What about with your songwriting? How do you copyright your songs?
I guess I register them with PRS and all that.
Do you send them to yourself in a sealed envelope? All that stuff.
I think those days are gone now. I don't think it's still legally binding anyway. But I got to say, in favour of PRS, they've made their website much more navigable. Is that the word? Navigatable? Easier these days to do all your legal online stuff and chase your royalties and register your gigs, because it used to be a minefield and really complicated, and they seem to make it as difficult as possible, but it's much better now. So yeah, you just get a song and a song code or whatever it is and stick it in under your name, and it's there. I mean, it can take years to get any money for it.
What advice would you give a younger you?
That's a good question.
So going back to sort of like where you was in London, starting off with your musical career.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a loaded question. I think get into Europe sooner. Maybe get out to the States earlier. Just be a bit more aggressive. Really, I was quite lazy. I was just happy playing local circuit. I was very unambitious. I think be more ambitious. But without being pushy, but be a bit more business savvy. Learn the business side, the admin side. That would be very good advice. Other than that, I've got no real complaints. I'm quite happy with how things went.
Just jump into the songwriting side quickly. So on your 2019 album, Naked Rage, the new song was on there, Dead Sea Captain. Where did that come from?
Oh, that was actually a story that happened. I was writing with a Dutch friend of mine, Misha Den Hering, from a band called T99, and he'd seen a story in a Dutch newspaper about a canal boat captain who took his canal boat out to sea, which they're not supposed to do. And yeah, he hadn't told his passengers, so they were all panicking. So it was just a funny story that was in the newspaper about this basically canal boat captain that went a bit nuts. and freaked his passengers out. So it just sprang out of that, really. Yeah, that was fun.
And what is the favourite song you've written?
Oh, Christ. That changes daily. I don't know. I just wrote one which is coming out on this new project. I wrote this one called Holler, which is it's just a straight ahead, old time acoustic Delta style blues, which is not an easy thing to write, I find, because it's all being done. And I'm pleased with how this has come out. It came out. I don't know where it came from. Just one of those songs came out of nowhere. So that was good. Yeah.
And what's the story behind your favourite song?
What that I've written, or
what you've written.
Oh. There is no story to that one. It was just some words that appealed to me that I strung together. There was no. It was just a phrase that had been sitting around, like in the notes on my phone for like a year or so, and then I developed it into a song. No real story to that, no. But then, you know, a lot of my songs are like that. It was just a scrap of a note that I'll find that I wrote down, and then nothing had happened with it for ages, and suddenly it inspires a bunch of lyrics. I'm not a very prolific writer, really.
Well, that's going to be my next question. What's your method to songwriting?
Yeah, it tends to be when if someone says I need a song from you, then I'll sit down and write it. But I don't tend to sit around. Like we mentioned John Amor earlier on, pretty sure John writes a lot. I'm sure he writes all the time. Whereas I have to wait until the record company or someone says we need a new album, and then I need the pressure, and pressure inspires me to write, and then it all comes pouring out. I can't force it. I wish I could. It's quite frustrating.
So what do you see yourself as then? As a guitar player, singer, or as a songwriter? What's...
Well, I see myself as more of a singer than a guitarist. And I guess a songwriter too. I mean, I have written quite a lot, but just...
Well, that's one of the things I enjoy about your music the most is your songs. You know, the lyrics and...
Well, going back to the question about what I'd advise my younger self is to start writing as soon as possible as well. And I say that to younger players now. It's like, don't just play covers, and find your own style. And I'm glad that I think that helped me a lot in my career, is that I think it doesn't matter if it's blues or country or what, even though it's old traditional music, you've got to have your own stuff, your own material. And there's always something new that you can say within an old framework. So I'm glad that I was writing fairly early on. I wish I just started it more prolifically sooner, but it's very important, I think, for people to write their own material. It was mostly the London players, like Lee Sankey, actually, really instilled that in me. Says you just got to do all originals, as many originals as you can, because it's easy to be lazy. You can have a decent career playing. It's in a blues band, you can get away with playing hardly any of your own stuff, and you do fine. But I think you won't go that bit further if you don't have your own stuff.
So when do these? Say you got an album to write. Where do these ideas come from for you?
Out of the ether.
Do you start panicking and think, oh, shit, I've got...
Yeah, basically it's sort of panic, pressure, and then that tends to drag stuff out of me.
So you start reading loads, like you mentioned, books and stuff?
Reading helps, or I'll have notes on old iPhones and bits of paper and scrapbooks, and I'll start putting them together, and suddenly start cobbling these songs together, and it's never failed me yet. And also collaborating with other people, I really like that. I've done that more in the last few years. It's just, and you can do it via email or phone message. Come up with a line, and then they'll come back with another one. And I've written quite a few lately like that. It's great. With friends in Mississippi and stuff. We wrote about me and Jimbo Mathis wrote a bunch of songs like that. So.
Can you remember writing your first song?
I can't. No, I can remember the first decent one, which I still play to this day, Falling On Down Again. I remember seeing a a gig by a hero of mine who's no longer with us, Big George from Glasgow, George Ross Watt. Seeing a gig of his and just going home and writing this song because I've been so inspired by him and his writing. I just wanted to write something sort of from the heart like he did, like a ballad. And yeah, I remember that was the first one I wrote that I was really pleased with, like proud, you know.
When you write a song, do you try to consciously be guided, or do you follow subconscious direction?
A combination of those things. That's a good question. Yeah, it's definitely. I can't say one or the other, but I'm aware that both things are happening.
Do you ever have you ever written anything and thought, where did that come from?
Definitely.
Because I've had that, and you've got no explanation or experience to think, well, that's come from somewhere else. You know,
it's like Keith Richards says, it's like you're a channel for something coming through you, and if you're lucky, it's like a radar's up, and if you're lucky, you'll hit
like different things, different people, different whatever.
Yeah. And I'll go back to songs that I wrote 10 years ago, and I have no idea where I got those lyrics from. Like, no at all. It's like, what was I thinking? I can't relate to that. You know, it's weird. It's like someone else wrote it. It's very strange.
Yeah, I've had that experience.
There are songs that you've crafted and you've actually, very, very consciously thought about. But yeah, for me, most of them are that weird kind of subconscious thing.
Are they them sort of songs? Are they ones that are normally come pretty quick and been mostly finished pretty quick?
Most of mine are written very fast and not changed. I find if I work too long on a song, I end up trashing it. You know, if I've spent too long on it, it's just not going to happen. So usually I write pretty fast. Yeah.
And do you write just the lyrics, or is it guitar and voice together?
Usually the lyrics, it starts with the lyrics with me, usually, and then the music just finds itself. Yeah, I know everyone's different. Some people have a melody and stuff. I think for me that comes later. It's normally the words. Yeah, but it varies.
Do you write your songs for yourself to sing, or do you have other people in mind?
I have written for other people, but usually it's for me. Yeah, usually. Yeah, I don't think about that.
Do you ever sit down with the intention to write a song, or do you wait for songs to come to you? So I think you sort of answered that, didn't you?
Usually the latter, but
yeah.
Sometimes I've had to sit and do it on purpose, but it's hard.
And who would you say has influenced you lyrically?
Yeah, Waits. I mean, Christopherson for sure. Towns, Costello, Dylan to an extent, but it's not. I don't like making comparisons with Dylan because I think he's the Don. It sounds a little arrogant, like to say, "Oh, Dylan's a big influence." Like, well, no, you ain't that good.
I read a line from him. An interviewer asked him, "Do you write your songs on piano or on guitar? And what notes do you use?" And he says, "I only use the black notes on piano, and the same on the guitar." Something like that.
That's just him being obtuse and trying to avoid stupid question. I love Bob. He's great for that.
Do you still enjoy writing songs?
I find it quite stressful, but the reward is, when it's working, the reward is huge, and I love the feeling. Yeah, like when we were doing this recent project, and I was sitting there thinking, I've got nothing here, and I promised the guys I'll come up with 2 verses, and suddenly it hits, and it just flows out, and you just go bingo. It's just that feeling is just fantastic. Yeah. But it can be, it doesn't always happen. It's just when it does, yeah.
Do you write more than you need and then edit?
Do you know what? There's not a lot of waste with my writing. I tend to write what's necessary, and I know when it's done. But I rarely have a ton of verses that I'm not going to use. I know when I'm satisfied. Yeah, so it's not a huge amount of editing. No.
Do you find it hard to write about yourself?
Yeah, there's normally an element of autobiographical, like semi, but it's never fully in my case. No,
So you've got characters of you that sort of come.
Yeah, it's more writing in character. Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be an element of yourself in there. There has to be to it. Maybe not has to be, but there often is. But I never go the full autobiographical. No.
Right. Do you need to understand the meaning of a song while writing it? Or does it sort of come as you're writing it?
Well, like you said about writing in character, sometimes you've got to imagine what it's like to be that person. So, but I think it helps if you've got some empathy and some experience of what it is you're writing about. I think that comes over. It's hard to fake. Yeah. But sometimes it's all imagination. It's all fiction, and it might be based on a book you've read or a movie you've seen. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't have a particular method. I don't think so. It can change from song to song. Sometimes it's all experience, and sometimes it's just pure fantasy. Yeah. So yeah, it varies.
Just for the last part, I was going to ask you a few quick fire questions where hopefully you won't think too much, just sort of short answers and see what comes out.
Yeah.
So, cash or card?
Cash.
Ask for permission or ask for forgiveness?
Oh, ask for permission.
Better or easier?
Better.
Silence or conversation?
Conversation.
Muddy or wolf?
Oh, muddy. Oh, God. Feels terrible.
Love or money?
Love.
Morning or night?
Morning.
In or outside the box?
I wonder what you're going to say then. Outside the box.
Heaven or hell?
Heaven.
Thank you, Ian. I hope it wasn't too painful.
Not at all. Some great questions, man. You should definitely keep this up. This is really cool. It's really good. I'm serious. It's like not everyone can do this. So I certainly couldn't. And some interviews are so fucking boring. It's been everything but that. Yeah.
No, well, I love what you do, and I know I haven't said it much, but I appreciate what you're doing for the blues and stuff, and you're a great musician, and I hope we get to see each other real soon.
In person, yeah, that'd be great, man. Stay in touch.
Cheers, Ian. Thumbs up.
Thank you. You got it. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Hey, it's Tommy Allen from TommyAllenMusic.com, and that was Ian Siegal. You can find out more about him and his music at IanSiegal.com, so go check that out. Next week, we have Ashwin Smith, a radio DJ from Digital Blues and part of the Blues Federation. Come and check that out at Wednesday at 7 p.m. GMT. Until then, please give us a like, hit the subscribe button, get a word from our director.